Hello everyone, and thank you for watching another ZBEST DIY photo and camera restoration video. And today I wanted to go over, I had recently purchased a rectangular Konica slip-on lens hood, and this was originally made for their 24 and 28 millimeter lenses, and these are really kind of neat, kind of a vintage lens shade, although they, definitely still in use today. But these were manufactured for their 24 and 28 millimeter wide angle lenses. You can see it says the Konica name brand there. It's manufactured in Japan at Konica. And this was a slip-on type that would go onto a 55 millimeter lens. You can use these on their Konica cameras, but you can also use them on, Yashica, Minoltas, some of the Pentexes and Canons and that type of thing. So they're still neat and very useful and functional because of their rectangular shape that goes with the format, especially with 35 millimeter film in the vintage rangefinder cameras. It also comes with a really neat case that has the Konica. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, the Konica name brand here. And it's a really neat piece. It's velvet lined to protect, the unit. And it's got a zipper enclosure, so you can attach this with the attachments to a belt or some kind of a bag or camera bag, basically, in the day. You could attach these to one of those. But this came in pretty good shape, and what I'd like to go over today is maybe a little restoration on the edges here that have come apart. It's a pretty quick fix and simple. It's easy, but for those of you that haven't, participated in fixing a case like this, it's pretty straightforward, and you'll have a nicer case afterwards. I'm going to move this aside out of the way here, and we're going to go through and fix the edges. I typically will wipe this down with a damp cloth to get the main dust off, but this one was in pretty good shape. And what I'll do is I'll typically come in and wipe this down when I get items, to tidy them up. Sometimes some are worse than others. And then on the inside, what I'll do typically is I'll give it a little blast of dust air to kind of clean things up a little bit in here to kind of make it tidy. It makes your item or your collectible that much nicer. This is in pretty good shape, though, this one here. And then what I'll do is I'll go with maybe a little piece of tissue, and I'll put a little bit of oil on it. Just a light oil would be okay to put right along the zipper here so that this will close smoothly. And this way you don't get it stuck or you don't get it jammed up. And the old vintage zippers, because they've been around so long, it'll be easier on them, and it'll extend the life of your vintage item. So what I typically use when I work on cases is a rubber cement. This happens to be Elmer's, but any good rubber cement will work. Another one that works well is Pliobond. And this is the VOC compliant. In other words, the volatility is quite low on this. The original Pliobond used to have a very intense odor to it, and it was a little bit, more difficult to work with in terms of working in a closed environment. So you definitely, with the original Plyo-Bond, you needed to have doors and windows open when you worked on it, or hopefully outside, to make it a little safer. But in any event, this is a little bit cleaner. It's a little bit overkill. This is nice for putting on skins to the cameras, the camera leathers and things like that for a little more permanent bond. Works terrific. I'm going to put this aside. This is just another little suggestion, but the Elmer's contact will work perfect for this. And Elmer's glue is available. I'm sure, as you know, in hobby stores, Michael's, Hobby Lobby's terrific for a lot of things. Camera restoration items that work very well. Also, Harbor Freight has glues and things like that you can use. But what we typically do is you want to make sure that this is clean. This is really clean, and I've already gone through this and cleaned this out. But it's nice to give a little blast of air in here every once in a while when you see something that might have a little bit more dirt. So the cleaner the better is what's a good idea here. And what you want to do is, typically for a permanent attachment, you want to put glue on both sides of the case. You want to make sure you don't leave the lid open too long on the rubber cement, because that will dry up on you. And then you can kind of bring it back to life again with a little bit of alcohol or acetone. But just by keeping it a little bit closed while you're working on it is always a big plus. So you want to put that all the way around, open that up a little bit so that it gets a little bit more glue inside. Kind of rub that liberally right inside there. And what's nice about rubber cement is that if you get a little bit on any piece, you can always just wipe it off right away, and it just kind of balls up a little bit into little gum particles, and it cleans up very, very nicely. That's a real big plus about the rubber cements when you use them. And then what you want to do is you want to bring this in. This one you kind of have to kind of coax it around a little bit like that, and might want to let it dry a little bit so that it attaches nicely. More permanent bonds are done by coating both sides, letting it dry, and then attaching it. Or if you just attach it to one side, it's a good bond, but you can still open it up a little bit more easily to kind of get inside later. I don't know why you'd want to do this with a case. With cameras and other items, you might want to detach them to work on them. But in this case, we'd like to do it permanently for this particular case. And then what I typically do to secure it is I'll use a couple of rubber bands going in both directions. We'll seal this up to give it a little bit more rigidity. Matter of fact, what I'll do is I'm going to put the lens shade right back inside, so that it's got a little bit of more rigidity inside as the glue sets. And what we do here, what I typically do is I use rubber bands to secure an item like this so that it sets and it attaches itself. Real simple, straightforward kind of attachment, but just enough so that it flattens it all out. And I'll use it on the longitude and the latitude of the case, in this case anyway, to make sure that the attachments are all the way around. If I can get that rubber band down there, that'll be terrific. There we go. So we do that, and we make sure that it's compressed. If you need to use another rubber band to flatten it out, that's excellent, to make sure it gets a nice flat attachment for the case. And then you just let that sit for maybe an hour or so, something like that, whatever you think in terms of the case and how much attachment it needs. And then this will attach itself there. And Probably a little bit more glue, would be a good idea. But for this demonstration, I just wanted to show you how to do something like that. And you can just put that aside. And you have a real nice case and attached. And then by attaching the edges, it will not come off as you rub it, or if you have it in your case, or if you use this with your vintage camera. You have a nice case, and it stays together, and it lasts a long time for you. So that's kind of a little quick restoration tip for these small cases that you get. You want to get them initially, give them an air blast, and clean out all the dust, wipe it down with a nice damp cloth, not very wet. You just want to get the dust off. And another thing that I do typically is I will spray the inside with perhaps maybe a little shot of Lysol spray inside. This can be done after you attach it or before, and the Lysol will kind of give it a fresh scent. And sometimes you get items that might have been in an environment where it's damp or mildew or smoking, or maybe there's pets or that type of thing, or maybe where it's been stored for a while, it picks up the scent of wherever it was at. So this kind of freshens things up a little bit when you use a little bit of Lysol. This is a small travel container. Of course, you can use the big one, which is much more economical, but I just wanted to share this with you, some things that I do. Another good thing is to leave these cases open right in the sun, and you leave them open for maybe a few hours in the bright hot sun outside, and that will typically take a lot of the odors off, if there is any odor in these cases. And leaving it in the sun, just letting it get exposed, will just really kind of make it a fresh, little fresh case, and make it fresher for when you carry it around with you. So in any event, that's kind of that tip for the day. We'll stay tuned for other tips. We've got a few more coming up, so stay tuned for that, and subscribe if you like this, or leave some suggestions. And that's ZBEST DIY, Z like zebra, BEST DIY, like do it yourself. That's what we're all fans of, to take care of these items and keep them in good shape so that they continue to have good use. So thanks a lot for watching. You have a good rest of the day now.